Welcome to Insync, the Female Game. I am Michelle Galbraith. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to delve into the curious conversation of female health, natural methods of keeping our bodies and mind healthy, vibrant and energised. Okay, well, welcome this afternoon. I have Georgina with us, and Georgina is my Reiki master, and we're going to be talking for the next half an hour about Reiki, the history of it, and how Reiki can assist you in your health goals. So welcome, Georgina.
Hello, and thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. So how did you become interested in Reiki practices?
Well, I was doing some courses with a friend in Ham, near Kew, Richmond, that sort of area, and we were looking at making your own fragrance, a sort of an aromatherapy course, and we liked that one, and we carried on to another one, and then I looked at the bottom at the end of the second course, and it said Reiki, and I said, whoa, could I actually learn to do this? Because I'd met a few really nice people who had amazing stories of how Reiki had affected them and helped them, but it didn't occur to me that anyone could learn Reiki, so I did. I just went and did a course with her.
Fantastic, excellent. So tell me just a little bit about the history of Reiki, and people who might be new to the principles of it. So a little bit of the history of Reiki, and indeed if there are any Western scientific references to it.
Okay. Well, Reiki, I think it's relatively new, and I like that about it. It was founded by a Japanese man, Dr. Mikao Usui. He was born in 1865, but he developed what we know as Reiki in the early 1920s. So the really nice thing for me is that it's very accessible, that this person who handed Reiki on from teacher to pupil, we can almost touch that. It's not too far away. So I really like that. Did you want to know anything more about history? Or?
Yes, so how did Mr. Usui come by it? Do we know that?
Well, there are lots of stories, and he spent his whole life being very interested in the sciences of the time, in medical and how to help people with health issues, and he collected lots of texts from all over the globe. He was part of the New Japan, which was exploring new boundaries and new sciences, and he was one of the first bunch of people who learnt language and studied other people's religions and beliefs. And he was someone who went on retreats and did lots of meditation. He was a martial arts expert from a young age, and he went on one of these very, very severe retreats, and it said that he had on his memorial stone, it talks about a great Reiki, a great energy descending on him, and the knowledge came to him like this.
Okay. So is Reiki considered a religion?
No, not at all. It's open to any belief system. I think of it as something very natural and as complicated as breathing, that when you breathe, but there are all sorts of chemical processes going on. And for me, Reiki is as natural as hugging someone. That's exchange of energy between people. It's the same as when you have a radiator in a cold room, that the heat warms up the cold. And I think that's what Reiki is like. You have an area in your body that's depleted in energy, and the Reiki just goes to it.
So we're tapping into natural universal laws. Would that be?
Yes, an energy that's all around us.
Yes. So it's physics.
It is for me. It is physics.
Physics. Lovely. Thank you. And what do you enjoy most about Reiki?
I love the fact that most people come out of a Reiki session, no matter whether they've had it before or not, and they nearly every time they say how relaxed they are, and that's a lovely thing to be able to do. But for a more selfish reason, Reiki's fantastic because every time you give someone a treatment, you're getting Reiki yourself. And I think that's a marvellous thing, that you're helping yourself as well as helping someone at the same time. So I think seeing the surprise on people's faces as well when they haven't had Reiki before, and what experience they can have, that's an amazing thing too.
Yeah, so it's definitely seems to be a win-win then for practitioner and recipient.
Absolutely.
And do you have people with specific health issues that come to see you? You know, who would be your typical customer?
Well, I mainly see women. I do see some men. I think women tend to come to me. It's mainly with issues of stress and anxiety. But I think women tend to come more than men because we're used to having things in our bodies from a young age, pains, aches and pains that we don't necessarily know where they come from. The whole hormone issue, that you can be on a roller coaster. If something makes you feel better, you want to do that again. You might not understand what it is, and I think men often really need to know exactly that it has a scientific background for them. And I think women, they have that ability to think, actually, I feel better, I want to do that again.
And that's enough for me because I feel better. Yeah, absolutely.
So I do get people coming with insomnia, headaches, shoulder pain or back pain, menstrual issues. But stress is the main thing.
Yes.
And it jumbles up all your hormones and gives you all those other issues I've mentioned, start with the stress.
Absolutely. So, it's definitely a win-win. Venetia, cut, last 3 seconds, take 2. So if you were talking to an 8-year-old about Reiki, how would you explain it to them?
Okay.
Can you describe what happens?
Well, that's a tricky one, but I suppose I just have to say that Reiki is a Japanese word, and it means universal life force energy, and that energy is a good thing that we need in our bodies, and that I bring this energy through my body, and wherever I put my hands on someone else or on me, and I intend for that Reiki to go, then that's when that energy goes there, and that person, wherever they need the Reiki, they will take whatever it is that is needed to make them feel better. I could probably do a better one than that.
Yes. I think it would work for an 8-year-old. It's the simplicity. Yeah,
right.
Excellent. So some people may be aware of meridian lines, which is a Chinese philosophy, and indeed the Indian culture. Our energy centres are described as chakras. Yeah. Does Reiki follow a modality through those concepts as well?
Well, it's not necessarily. You don't necessarily have to follow one of those constructs, but I was taught the chakra system, and I found that is very useful because we tend to have, we've taught 12 hand positions of where you treat someone, and they follow the spine being the main energy highway of the body, and the energy centres or chakras you were talking about are a very easy way of describing why we put our hands in certain places on the body. So, for example, if you had some hormone issues, you might expect to treat the areas lower down in your body, the root chakra and the sacral chakra. But then you and I know that looking at someone holistically, and the great thing about Reiki is it goes to the cause. So your hormonal issue might be because of thought patterns. So it might be that your head needs the treatment. Yes. Or it could be emotional issues caused by thoughts. Yes. And so you treat everyone in entirety.
Yeah, so just balancing out the whole body, yes. And then when you talked earlier about intention, if you have a visual, let's use chakras as an example, with that intention gives maybe more of a discipline and a focus of, right, I'm now on the head, therefore I'm dealing with all the brain systems.
Exactly.
So that just strengthens the whole concept of I'm doing this with intention.
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. So let's move on to the top 5 health benefits of using Reiki for female health. And quite a nice segue here, we've just been talking about hormones. So how would Reiki assist our female hormones?
Well, it is just exactly what we were talking about there. In a Reiki treatment, you treat the whole body. So you'd normally start at the head and work down the front of the body, and then turn over and work down the back of the body. And you might expect, when you're treating someone who has some hormonal imbalance, that your hands would want to remain in a certain place longer. For example, down around the ovaries, and maybe at the back with the adrenals. And the body is an amazing, complex balance of everything, and the Reiki just goes to exactly where it's needed.
Yes. And you get that as a feeling?
Yes.
You get a sense that, I need to spend more time here.
Yes.
What do you feel as a practitioner? Okay. What do you actually feel?
As a practitioner, generally the most common thing I feel is heat in a certain place, and that heat can be very intense, and so I just keep my hands in that place until that heat just eases off a bit. Sometimes it can be a coolness where maybe there's, for example, a muscle that's very tight and lots of tension there. And again, I'd wait until that area warmed up, felt warm to me. And particularly with adrenal issues, that's on the back of the body, I would find that my hands would want to stay there a lot. And we're talking about women's hormones. Most of the time, it's not... my hands don't have to stay around the root and the sacral area. It's normally the head, the emotional centres.
Yes.
A lot of the time when people are being bullied and being in unpleasant situations. So it's around the solar plexus.
Yes.
But in your rib cage.
The bottom of your rib cage, yes.
Yeah. That will feel like it needs to have more energy there.
Yeah. So linked in with, environmental... experiences that we can have out in the workplace, for example, you just described bullying. Would you also then find from an emotional centre perspective that someone's head would be quite
definitely
buzzing as well?
Yes.
Yes, because obviously the mind is looking for solutions to be able to keep the person safe, because that's what we're hardwired for, keeping ourselves alive.
And tension in their shoulders, often shoulder pain, neck pain comes with that. Yeah. And but the whole thing with Reiki that makes it interesting for me is that someone might come in with a particular problem that they're presenting with, a symptom, if you like, maybe a menstrual problem, or shoulder pain, or insomnia. And I'm thinking of a particular lady who came in with saying to me that she had trouble sleeping. And at the end, I had to say to her, I'm really sorry, I know you wanted your sleeping sorted out, but it was your shoulder today that was really, really taking lots of energy.
Yes.
And then she just said to me, oh, well, it's my shoulder that's been keeping me awake.
Yes.
With the pain.
Yes.
So that's where, with Reiki, you take a step back and you let the Reiki go where it's going to go. Yeah. So that's a lovely way to be able to help your fellow women.
Yes, it's just simplicity, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm hearing through all of this conversation that it's just simplicity. If we allow, then, and get ourselves out of the way of the bits that we don't understand, and we have some intention for ourselves over our health goals as well, then we have more of a chance of achieving them.
Yes,
and Reiki is a way of being able to unlock.
Yes, it's
that
one
awareness.
Very good way.
Yeah. Lovely. So what about exercise, Georgina? So do people come to you specifically to alleviate injuries from exercise, or have you ever had someone come to you, maybe this might be an indirect observation, where they're not so keen to exercise and they're lacking a little bit in their confidence, and they've come for some Reiki?
Well, that would be most of the people who come to me. They're lacking in confidence. They've had either a breakup, bereavement, or just in a really low ebb in their life, and they come along maybe once a week for a little while, and then maybe once every other week, and you gradually watch them flowering, and then they're able to go back out, and they feel able to cope and have the energy then to go and do their exercise, join the classes that they used to enjoy. For example, I had a yoga teacher who did colour analysis, and after just a few treatments, she'd suffered several bereavements and trauma, and she had a very deep reaction to it, to the Reiki, and she said that her classes started to pick up, and she took up her colour analysis again, and when you're in that right frame of mind, things come back to you, and people come to you, people want to be with you, and it just starts off like dropping a stone into a pond, good ripples.
Yes. Well, then that is all the natural energy playing out there. But of course, from an anatomy perspective, we have mirror neurons. So if we're giving out our grump, then you get
that
grump,
back.
You get the grump back. So too, you're giving out the upward spiral. God, what's she drinking? You know,
so
you will attract. Yeah.
Well, I have had specific injury things as well, where people have injured their knees, for example. I had a Pilates teacher, a friend of mine, who I was watching in class. She had a very high-speed skiing accident, and really hurt her knee. Her foot and lower leg had gone black.
Oh, gosh.
And she'd been seen by the doctors. There was nothing more to do. But she had her classes. She had to demonstrate. That was her job.
Yes.
And she was trying to do this standing on one leg. So I asked her if she wanted some Reiki, and we did a couple of sessions. And it was amazing how quickly her body reacted. Yeah. And she was able to go back to demonstrating on two legs again.
Fantastic.
So it definitely has a physical effect as well as effect on emotions too.
Wonderful. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so what process do you follow, Georgina, to find, answers to, health solutions, as the nature of our conversation here, using Reiki?
Health solutions for me or for other people?
Or for other people, yeah.
Well, for me, I use Reiki on myself every day. If I was to have a headache or a tummy ache, I can just put my hands on me, and instead of having to reach for the pills, 10 or 15 minutes of Reiki, the same with somebody else in the family, that's normal to do that now. A sore shoulder, sore foot.
Yes.
Instead of going for the paracetamol. What other things were you thinking of?
So if someone was new to Reiki, and maybe they just went on the computer and had a quick Google of it, and I want to now have a play and see if I can do Reiki on myself, is firstly that a possibility? And if so, what sort of process would be a sensible modality for them to follow?
Well, Reiki itself, you have to go and be attuned by a Reiki teacher. But of course, you taking care of yourself and having a positive thought towards yourself in a caring way, massage or putting cream on your body, looking after your feet, your hair, all of those things are so important. Looking after yourself, caring for yourself in a loving way. But in specific, going to Reiki, learning to do Reiki, you'd have to go on a Reiki course and have a Reiki teacher take you through level 1, which is the first stage of Reiki, and that's when you would learn to do Reiki on yourself, friends and family. And a lot of people don't have to go any further than that.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, then it's their lifelong tool to come out of the box with it. And can you do Reiki without anybody necessarily knowing what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you could be at work one day and you think, right, I need some wherever in my shoulder.
Yes.
Can you just visualize it, or do you have to physically put your hands in the place?
You can just visualize it. I think that is one of the ways that Dr. Usui taught. But in the West, people find that much more difficult to cope with.
Yes.
So we tend to use the hands and put your hands on, and then you have a very physical, immediate response that you can feel things going on or not.
Okay.
So you could, if you're sitting at your desk, you could be just putting your hands on your legs under the table, or your tummy under the table, and no one has to know.
Yeah.
The same on the train to work.
Yeah.
You could be putting your hands on your legs, or just in your lap.
Yes.
And you intend for the Reiki to flow, and it does.
That's lovely, because especially when something is new to a person, it's often useful just to have that information for yourself until you get some confidence around it, because our external environments are massive distractors at the best of times.
Yes.
And even the most well-intentioned people can throw us off our throw us off our path, if you will, of trying to learn something new, just because they don't understand it, and they may have this, kind wish to protect you, or so it's okay to just do things privately until you get some form of confidence around it to then go and share it, if you want to share it.
If you want to share
it. But everyone's health journey is their own private journey anyway.
It is.
Lovely. So just to sort of finish off then, Georgina, it's been very interesting half an hour. What do you think? Are there any challenges? Are there any challenges using traditional ways of intuitive knowing, which is really what we've been talking about, with Western science? Do you see any current challenges? And do you see that at some point that Reiki will become more acceptable with our Western protocols?
I certainly think that Reiki is going to become more acceptable. Science is just catching up now with what the Eastern cultures have known for thousands of years, that we are a bunch of vibrating particles, that we're not solid, and all the experiments that are going on in physics nowadays with all the minutiae of our particles in our bodies, realising that we are more space than solid, and that we are energy. So now, science is saying, actually, we are energy, and everyone else has known that for a long time. So I do think that is coming.
Yes.
But Reiki has not been investigated and tested in Western science enough, because it's not something where you can say, take a pill and it goes away, and nobody's going to want to pay for it. So I think because we have been traditionally in the West, focused more on money, I think we're a little bit behind on that side. Also, you were saying something about the challenges. I think that idea I was talking about, the male perspective as well, where you have to have proof, and you have to have scientific proof, when the proof most of the time is you feel better, or you see someone who has a sore foot and then 10 minutes later they don't.
Yes.
What other proof do you need?
Yes,
really?
Absolutely. Yes. When you do Reiki on animals, animals can't pretend.
No.
So that for me is sufficient empirical evidence that it is what it is.
Yes. And on little children as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. So as one very last takeaway question, what would be your top advice, your top tips for someone to, perhaps have a go at Reiki as part of their health?
Well, have a look at the different Reiki masters and teachers on the internet, and have a chat to some of them and see who you resonate with. It's really important that you get on. It's important to do Reiki face-to-face, I think, with someone, because when you are attuned, your body system is changed, it's rearranged, and you can have some symptoms from that. And you want somebody you trust to be able to tell you what's okay and what isn't okay, and give you that support. Often there are emotional issues that arise, because Reiki can set you off on an emotional journey, a cleansing in many, many ways.
Because it's shifting the energy.
It's shifting old patterns.
Just shifting old habits, old patterns, old energy. That, you know, it's a bit like when we buy a new sofa, isn't it? This is how I like to visualise it.
Yes.
Is I throw the old one away.
Yes.
I don't put the new sofa on top of the old sofa.
Yes.
In terms of me getting rid of my habits.
Yes.
So I wouldn't. Why would I want to pile new ways of being, improved ways of being, on top of my old stuff?
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll use that one.
That's my closet. You know, just clear out the brain. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And just make it be an enjoyable thing.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing. I love Reiki courses.
Yes.
You feel so fantastic. There's nothing like it.
Wonderful. Well, it's been a joy having you here today,
Thank
Georgina.
you.
And thank you so much for all that lovely knowledge you've shared with us in the last half an hour. Many thanks. You have been listening to 30 Minutes at Insync, the Female Game, with Michelle Galbraith. If you've enjoyed your time here, subscribe on the link below and go to our website insync.life for more links to information. What would it be like if you could walk into a room with your head up and your shoulders back, and you would know that you've chosen the life that you deserve, that you have treated yourself like a girl and still be powerful, and I'm going to show you how. See you on the other side at insync.life.